War elephants. Towering beasts armored in steel, carrying warriors on their backs, and charging into ancient battlefields with terrifying force. Did ancient India truly unleash these colossal animals as living weapons of war? Or are the stories exaggerated legends passed down through history? Were these armies of elephants as unstoppable as ancient texts suggest? Or has their image been magnified into myth over time? To understand the question of war elephants, it is essential to begin with the setting. The Indian subcontinent, stretching from the Indus Valley to the Gangetic Plain, was home to some of the world's most advanced civilizations as early as 3000 BC. By the first millennium BC, kingdoms had risen across the region, from the Mahajanapadas in the north to dynasties that controlled trade routes linking Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. The dense forests and fertile river valleys of India supported not only thriving cities, but also massive herds of wild elephants, creatures that were deeply woven into the culture, religion, and economy of the era. The earliest clues about elephants in warfare come not from stone inscriptions, but from ancient Indian texts. The Rig Veda, composed around 1500 BC, mentions elephants, though not explicitly in battle. By the time of the Mahabharata, finalized around the 4th century BC, elephants appear as fearsome war animals, trampling lines of infantry and breaking through enemy ranks. Yet scholars debate how much of this epic reflects real military practices compared to poetic storytelling. Did these accounts describe actual battlefield experiences, or did they elevate the elephant into a symbol of unstoppable power? Written records are only part of the story, and archaeologists have turned to inscriptions and reliefs for firmer evidence. Stone carvings at sites like Sanchi and Barhut, dating to around the 2nd century BC, depict elephants in military processions and ceremonial contexts. Inscriptions of the Mauryan Empire, particularly those attributed to Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BC, mention elephants both as spoils of war and as prized assets of the state. These sources suggest that elephants were not only used, but also institutionally organized into armies, maintained by royal stables, and considered strategic assets on par with chariots and cavalry. Historians believe that it was under the Nanda and Mauryan dynasties, spanning roughly the 4th to the 3rd centuries BC, that elephants became a formalized element of Indian armies. Accounts suggest that the Nandas fielded thousands of war elephants, while Chandragupta Maurya, founder of the Mauryan Empire, deployed them against both domestic rivals and foreign invaders. By this period, elephants were not merely an occasional tool, but a professional military branch, trained, armed, and commanded like regiments of cavalry or foot soldiers. What remains less clear is the exact effectiveness of these units once they entered battle. Controlling such a dangerous animal on the battlefield required extraordinary skill. Historical sources and later treatises describe the role of the mahout, the elephant rider and trainer, who guided the creature using sharp goads, vocal calls, and sometimes alcohol or stimulants before combat. Elephants were outfitted with armor to protect their heads and flanks, while wooden towers were sometimes mounted on their backs to carry archers or spear throwers. Despite this preparation, the unpredictability of elephants was a constant risk. Evidence tells us that a panicked or injured elephant could cause devastation in its own army, trampling friendly troops in blind terror. It was not only within India that war elephants made an impression. When Alexander the Great invaded the subcontinent in 326 BC, he confronted King Porus and his army of elephants at the Battle of the Hydaspes River. Greek historians recorded the terror and awe these animals inspired among Macedonian troops, describing how the elephants crushed cavalry horses and lifted soldiers with their trunks. Even though Alexander's disciplined phalanxes ultimately prevailed, his historians made it clear, elephants changed the tempo and psychology of battle. Later, the successors of Alexander, particularly the Seleucids, adopted elephants from Indian sources, spreading their use across the Hellenistic world. Beyond their physical power, war elephants served another crucial role: intimidation. Imagine an infantry unit of poorly armed conscripts facing the sight of dozens of armored elephants charging at full speed. The sight, sound, and sheer presence of the animals could shatter morale before combat even began. Historians believe that many of the victories attributed to elephants were less about the number of enemy troops they crushed, and more about the collapse of enemy courage, disorder among cavalry horses, and the spiral of panic in opposing armies. Despite their fearsome reputation, elephants had significant weaknesses. They required enormous resources: fodder, water, and constant care, which strained military logistics. Their effectiveness was reduced against disciplined, well-prepared armies armed with projectiles, fire, or methods to spook elephants into turning on their own side. Over time, advances in cavalry and siege weaponry reduced the battlefield advantage of these animals. By the medieval period, war elephants remained symbols of royal power in India, but their strategic value had declined, often relegated to ceremonial and prestige roles rather than decisive combat forces. Even after their practical use diminished, the cultural and symbolic power of the war elephant endured. They appeared in royal parades, temple reliefs, and literature as enduring emblems of strength and authority. The concept of the elephant as a war machine influenced not only Indian military thought, but also kingdoms across Southeast Asia, where elephants played similar roles in armies of Burma, Siam, and Cambodia. Today, historians study these animals not simply as exotic curiosities, but as important actors in the military and political strategies of the ancient world. So, did ancient India truly have war elephants? The evidence from texts, archaeology, and foreign accounts all point toward a resounding yes, but with important nuances. These creatures were indeed trained, armored, and deployed in great numbers, shaping both the tactics and psychology of ancient warfare. Yet they were not invincible engines of destruction, and their effectiveness was often more symbolic than practical. What remains undeniable is the imprint they left on both history and imagination: massive, unpredictable, awe-inspiring beasts that blurred the line between animal and weapon, myth and reality.